What's up, Summer League fans? This is Dora Panteli. Welcome to another Summer League International show. And today, our guest is probably the only person who watches all the games of Summer League, and he watches them probably more than one time, if that's possible. Monty McCutchen, thank you very much for accepting the invitation to be here with us.
It's great to be here, Dora.
Yeah, well,
it's great
we see
to
you
always
all
talk
over
about
the place.
officiating well.
Senior Vice President, Head of Development and Training for referee operations at the NBA. So how's that, working with the Summer League?
The Summer League is great for us, Dora, because we get to see the next generation of referees come in. They are on different arcs. We have some that are in their first year in the G League. We have others that are working NBA preseason games and a smattering of small amounts of NBA games. And so we have different expectations for different referees here. But ultimately, referees are here to serve the game. And serving the game at the Summer League is as important as serving it anywhere time else we do it. So this is a great week for us, or week in 10 days.
And it's very important what we're saying, because a lot of people, when they think about Summer League, they think, about the young players that they want to expose their talent so they can get picked if they're not picked already, or they can get picked from teams from Europe. They don't think about the referees.
No, and the referees, we had a good discussion about that this week, where you have to remember that this isn't just for number 1 and number 2 draft picks. You're here to serve the game of basketball.
Exactly.
And so there are people playing for contracts all over the world. There are coaches coaching for contracts all over the world. And it's important that we do the game in a way in which everyone is honored, and we don't sit there and take, choices about how hard we work. We work hard all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it looks to me that this is the opportunity to test and prepare the next generation of referees, and we've seen a lot of referees from all over the world.
Yeah, we've taken a real strong approach to finding the best talent worldwide. Our NBA franchises have about 25% international players. And we have international coaches now. Darko in Toronto getting, the head position there. So we have to be open to finding the best talent worldwide. Same is true for refereeing. And we have several referees from the BAL. We had referees, obviously, from FIBA all over. We had a couple from EuroLeague. And so it's a fantastic opportunity for us to see talent.
Now, 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, the NBA's Board of Governors approved 2 rules.
Yeah.
2 rule changes for the next season. And what was interesting was that these 2 rules were unanimously, recommended. So that says something, right?
Well, the rules are put in place because our game is organic. We see it change, and we're always wanting to make sure our rules step up and actually handle the game as it's growing. We realize that the scrutiny that coaches are under, the scrutiny that players are under, requires a certain amount of ability to get plays right. And if we're going to make egregious errors, we need to make sure that that there's a chance for them to be corrected. In the past, it's only been 1. Now we're going to have 2 chances to get a coach's challenge in. The one caveat to that, Dora, is the ability to, if the first one is correct and they keep their timeout, the second one won't be. You'll be able to use it as a challenge, but you are going to lose the timeout. You must have a timeout to have a second challenge.
And the purpose of that is not to stop the flow of the game, as we said before so many times.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we're getting calls right, but that we don't have so many stoppages that players get frozen up, get cooled down. We want to make sure the game keeps moving. That's what our fans expect. That's what our players and coaches want.
So that's the first one. So the second coach's challenge, if the first is correct, if the first one is correct, let's go to the other one, the flopping.
Yeah.
Which is something that, again, a lot of people have been insisting in, putting it in there. So how is that going to work?
Yeah, what we're going to do is make sure that we get the most obvious and the egregious examples. Every time someone embellishes or enhances trying to draw attention is not going to be penalized with a non-unsportsmanlike technical foul. But it is important that if we get an obvious, a theatrical, an exaggerated play by an offense or a defensive player, we want to penalize that. We want to make sure that becomes something that we get out of our game. No one looks good. The player doesn't look good. The game is embarrassed. It has a chance to fool referees. And as such, if we can get the most obvious, exaggerated, if there's a secondary act, if there's some contact, and then the player falls back some, but then changes direction and goes over this way while flailing their arms. Those are the ones we're going to penalize with a non-unsportsmanlike technical foul. It will not lead to ejections. It won't lead to other unsportsmanlike acts.
Now, again, how this is going to work with not interrupting the flow of the game?
Yeah, well, it's going to be like any other call.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give a signal. The signal will be here and out one time. And when we give that signal, we're going to make sure that we don't stop the game when there's a scoring opportunity or the action is such. The first neutral opportunity where neither team has an advantage, we're then going to stop the game. And from there, we'll apply the non-unsportsmanlike technical foul. The ball will go back into play in the exact same place it would have been when we stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope that that speeds the game up.
And what happens with the pre-existing flopping regulations we had before?
Well, right now, they're just no calls. And so for us, this is all new and fresh.
Mm-hmm.
You know, FIBA has a flopping
Exactly,
rule.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and the NCAA. We took parts of that, but we didn't include every piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so as such, we're going to monitor this. This is an experimental rule for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how it goes, and then we'll add or detract from it as it grows organically.
Okay, it sounds really good to me.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It sounds like a plan, though. You're already
Yeah.
well prepared, and this was a great opportunity for you guys to test it.
Yeah, I think that for us, the Summer League, the G League has, been a proving ground in the past. Here, we thought this was most important, that we're going to go straight to the NBA with it. But we've implemented it here at the Summer League in a way that we can then see how it grows. We have examples from this week. We'll go back and monitor it. We'll take those examples to the competition committee, who will help us calibrate what is and isn't a flop that we want to penalize with that non-unsportsmanlike technical foul. There will still be some enhancements or embellishments that will be considered no calls. We're not going to stop the game for them. But the big theatrical secondary acts, we're going to try to penalize.
Now, okay, we talked about the technical part, which is your
Yeah.
job. You're a
Yeah.
referee, I understand. I'm a journalist. I love basketball. So what I've seen so far, and I'm going to talk about Wembanyama. I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
Victor Wembanyama. Do you think he has the ability to change the game, even for the referees?
Well, it's interesting because referees are always slightly behind the advancement of players. Players organically change the game. They work towards the skill set. They're working on plays all the time that are different than what we've seen, moves that we've never seen. What we see in the new, it's not just Victor. I think Giannis helped change some
Yeah.
of this. What we've seen is bigger players being able to do things that traditionally smaller players
Exactly.
did. And so I think that from that standpoint, we've already started to see that revolution to some degree. Referees, though, are, when they're at their best, they're trying to apply standards equitably across all the players. And Victor most certainly will have to come in and understand how the rules apply and are applied by NBA officials. But ultimately, if we as referees better be treating all players the same up against those standards, or we're not doing our job properly.
Yes, I'm asking this because I think a lot of times we have the same concept in mind as well. When we judge players in a good way,
Yes.
or when you're judging if you're going to give a call or not, you're doing it by position. So
Yeah.
if you see a big guy dribbling down the court or a big guy try to do things that a smaller guard will do, you don't think that this is a foul. You don't think it will
Sure.
travel. They will travel or not. So how the
Well,
same
that's a
goes
great
with
example.
the same thing goes with the guards trying to post.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
might not get the same calls as a post player.
Well, and they should. So let's take the post. We should be calling plays in the post based on whether someone's dislodged from a legal spot that they attained, whether that's big or small. Now, sometimes it looks different when you're bigger. The same thing is true when you pick the ball up for 2 steps. Well, our bigger players can cover a lot more distance, but it's still 2 steps.
Exactly.
As opposed. And so sometimes that looks like, how can they get from the top of the key all the way to the rim on 2 steps? But some of our players can do that now. We have to make sure we're enforcing the standard, not how it looks. And that's why we're trained. And it's not the same as being somewhere at home with popcorn eating away.
True.
So,
And one last thing about the bigger guys, the bigger bodies that are entering the league and they're playing outside. They're not only positioned within the basket. It looks to me that the distance that the referees have to cover, it becomes smaller and has to be faster.
yeah. We have to, one of the things that we learned when I first started refereeing many years ago, the game was played below the free throw line. It was a post game. You put the ball down into the block, and then if you got double teams, you kicked out for open threes. Now the game is played above the free throw line, and we had to change some of our mechanics to make sure we were constantly in place. Early offense is a big part of NBA basketball now, and so we helped change our mechanics to make sure our referees were in proper positions to see this new wave of basketball as it's played today.
That's very interesting because a lot of people, we don't understand because we see you guys positioning in different ways every time it's changing, and I think that the game changes and you are required to change as well, like we all do.
Absolutely. And if we don't, if we're 1 year behind those kinds of changes, we can catch up. If we wait 3 or 4 years to get behind those changes, it's much more difficult for us to catch up because the game is constantly evolving.
Well, Monty, thank you very much. We understood everything perfectly, and I think it will be nice to see what is going to happen during the year with the new rules. And we're going to be here next year in Summer League to discuss about it.
Well, you can hold us accountable next year. Thank you for having me, Dora.
And thank you for watching the Summer League International show.